Monica McNutt gonna muse about the Knicks. Plenty of talk there, and plenty of talk coming from LeBron. He said, what? We'll tell you about it, what it means for the Lakers. And AJ wants to stay in Utah, but will dreams come true? We'll find out. Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. She is Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz for the next 2 hours. We are packed with everything you need to know. Superstar guests galore. It is going to be a Thursday, y'all, but we start with the NBA playoffs because last night was a roller coaster of emotions. Last night, if you're a Cavs fan, you were up, you were down, you were up, you were down. Harden was great. Harden sucked. Harden was great. Harden sucked all in one, but through all of it, through the weirdest game I can remember in a long time. A game that saw the Cavs down by 9 with 3 minutes to go and then go to overtime. They get the absolute wild win, the series advantage. Caroline, what do we make of it?
You know that meme that's like a mom in the front seat of the car saying to her kid in the back seat, "Why can't you just be normal?" And then the kid in the back seat is like, "Ah!" That's what this game was last night. It was just, I wanted it to be normal, and it was drunk, and it was back and forth, and it was controversial. It was great. This game had everything. And of course, the hero, the likely hero that we all could have expected, who was making clutch shots and great defense, turning Cade Cunningham over in the last couple of minutes. Of course, it was James Harden, the guy that we knew was going to be the postseason savior, the guy who's always clutch in the playoffs. If you sense just like the tiniest bit of sarcasm in my voice there. But no, I said yesterday I favored the Pistons in this game because I didn't think that we were going to continue to see clutch moments from James Harden in the postseason, because why would I expect him to do that 2 games in a row? But there he was. And it was like whiplash fit. Sometimes there were times that James Harden turned the ball over and it was ugly turnovers. And then all of a sudden you see James Harden hitting just beautiful shots and the most important points in the game. But you see the stat line: 30 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. James Harden has been such a massive reason why the Cavs now find themselves with an edge in this series. Is a massive reason why, even down 9 with 3 minutes to go on the road, a place where Detroit is obviously very comfortable and has not lost a lot of basketball games, on the road, a place where the Cavs have yet to win a game in the postseason, they find themselves with their backs against the wall. They were able to fire back in the last couple of minutes of the game, and they really largely controlled overtime. I felt like once we got into OT, Fitzy, the Pistons just kind of threw their hands up, they waved the white flag, and they just did not have anything else to give. But just as much as the Cavs won this game and they were able to piece together what they needed to in the final minutes of this game to come back, I think even more than that, the Pistons lost it. They just looked confused and befuddled, and they made dumb mistakes, and they missed free throws. They let the Cavs right back into this game just as much as the Cavs commanded it. And I look at a guy like Cade Cunningham, who dropped 39 points last night, 13 of 27 from the field, and I'm looking around for him on his behalf. Like, when is anybody else going to step up? Who is going to help Cade Cunningham? Because it doesn't matter if Cade Cunningham drops 40 when you're not getting any other contribution from anyone else, especially Jalen Duren.
Yeah, and to be fair, look, you're right, Cade, big on the stat sheet, but Cade also had a couple of key turnovers in this game late that were absolutely consequential for the Pistons. And when you're an MVP candidate, you can't do that, whether we're talking about Cade or whether we're talking about the best player on any other team. If Harden had had the exact same turnovers, the exact same way that Cade Cunningham did last night, our narrative this morning would be, oh my God, this is why you can't trust Harden in a playoff game. Now, he did have a couple of rough moments, Harden, that being said. But realistically, I think you're right. This is part of why we do talk about playoff experience. Because while the Cavs are still learning each other, and I thought it was interesting even after the game, Harden continued to stress, we are still learning who we are as a team. We're still learning how to play together. This is a Pistons team that's still learning how to win in the playoffs. The 9-0 run that the Cavs went on to end the game in the last 3 minutes is the third longest, the third biggest run we've seen in modern basketball to close out a playoff game. That's how big a choke job it was by the Pistons. and how big of a moment it was for the Cavs to come through in that moment, especially on the road, because the Cavs haven't done that all year. So especially when they needed a big bucket. Look, Harden had some weird misses at the rim. Harden had some weird free throws he doesn't usually miss late. There were plenty of opportunities where I thought, man, they're leaving the door just open enough for Detroit. But Detroit seemed to be incapable of finding a way to kick that door down. I know we'll get in a second to the call at the end of the game that has people outraged, but the fact that we even got to a call with 1.6 seconds left that could have changed the end of this game speaks to the meltdown we saw from Detroit. Now, that call, for anyone that didn't see it, there was a great stop late in the game, created a ball that was running out. The Cavs looked like they didn't want to let Detroit get out to get the ball. Looked like a trip. It wasn't called. Everybody lost their mind. Everybody this morning is losing their minds. But Caroline, I think it's important to note two things can be true. I think it was a foul. I think it should have been called as a foul. I think it's a huge miss that they didn't call the foul. Also, it never should have gotten to that point in the first place. So I sympathize, I empathize with everybody that comes in and says, oh my God, how do you not make that call? But also, that call was not the singular reason that Detroit lost that game.
It was a trip. Like, Jared Allen did trip Asar Thompson. Like, we can acknowledge that, right? And whichever side of the aisle that you are on philosophically with officiating, if you're on the side of the aisle of you can't call that in that moment, fine. I'm on the side of if you see it, you have to call it. I don't care if it's the last second of a postseason game. It is what it was, and it is an officiant's job to call what they see. But all that to be said, like we heard JB Bickerstaff just absolutely harping on that no call, which, look, JB Bickerstaff, there's a part of some posturing that you have to do with the media when you're a head coach, putting that out there in the universe that they felt slighted by the officiants to try and at least get some calls to go their way in game 6. But with all that being said, one, that was not even Detroit's offensive possession. Like, the Cavs had the ball in that moment. The Cavs were trying to win the game in that moment. Now, it was a total and complete, just mismanagement of the clock there. I don't understand what the Cavs were doing there in the final 20, 25 seconds of the game, but the Pistons didn't even have the ball. So to hear them whining about it, I think is pretty rich. 2, the fact that this even came down to a call or a no call in the final few seconds, I like, that's on you. You had a 9-point lead. What, like a 98% chance of winning this basketball game in the final couple of minutes in the fourth quarter. And you want to come out here and blame the officials and point the finger at not calling that trip as being the reason why you got totally and completely slighted? Why don't you do your job? Why don't you close out basketball games so it doesn't fall into the ref's hands? I do feel like Pistons fans are probably waking up this morning feeling like the referees really blew it for them, when no, in reality, your team blew it.
There's no one moment that causes that loss. I want to see if our guys can pull back up. They just had a tweet up from KOC just a minute ago, our teammate at Yahoo Sports, talking about this call. We'll see if we can get it back up. Everybody, two guys fighting for a loose ball, one guy falls. That should rarely ever be a foul. Keep those soft calls in the regular season. Would have been a shame if last night's awesome game ended on it. I can't disagree with this take more. And I love Kevin. This is absolutely wrong. If you don't believe it was a foul, then it shouldn't be called. That's fine. Every smart basketball person I've talked to along the way over the last 12 hours, or I've watched over the last 12 hours, seems to think it was a foul. So if you believe it was a foul, it has to be called. This whole concept of like, well, the right time or the right place to call. You can't call that foul in that moment. Okay, so we really want refs sitting there at the end of games holding a whistle saying, well, I don't know, that's a pretty big moment. I probably shouldn't get involved here. I'll let the play out. Like, if it's clearly a foul, I'm sorry, if he just shoves him to the ground, well, he can't call a foul in that moment. We're deciding that there's a sliding variable of how much of a foul we're willing to call, how much of a foul we're not willing to call, when we're asking refs to blow the whistle and when we're asking the refs to not blow the whistle. Again, I don't think the foul is what changes the outcome of the game. I think it's one of many factors, one of many reasons. So I'm not looking at this saying, oh my God. But when the 2-minute report comes out, and I believe it will, and says this should have been a foul, and I believe it will. When that happens, the only answer to me is if you see something, say something. If it's a foul, it's a foul. The concept of, well, we can't let the refs get involved here is such a slippery slope. Because ultimately, Kevin's saying last night's awesome game, it would have been a shame if last night's awesome game ended on it. It's a shame that we're not talking about a beautiful defensive play right before it. Instead, we're talking about the foul. The shame here is that the foul wasn't called, because had the foul been called, it was a good call. We're having more conversation today about the fact that it wasn't called. So I completely disagree with KOC coming in and saying you can't make that call. Again, I don't think the foul would have been it's not the end all be all. And the Pistons own the reason that they lost this game. It's not up to the refs. I just hate this concept that we're now supposed to be the arbiters of when the situation is right to call a foul versus when a situation isn't right to call a foul, and what we want for entertainment versus the refs just doing their damn jobs. Just let officials do their jobs.
This was the same kind of philosophy with the Wemby. Should he be suspended? Should he not be suspended? Kind of conversation that we were having a few days ago after he threw the elbow at Naz Reid. I heard a lot of people saying, well, Wemby shouldn't be suspended because this series is significantly less interesting when he's sitting on the bench or when he's at home. And I wholeheartedly agree with the idea that any series in any basketball game is wildly less interesting without the 7'5" alien superstar that we see in Victor Wembanyama. But that doesn't matter. It's not about shock value or entertainment value. It's not about what makes this a better game. It's not about what made that a better ending last night. It's what's right and what is wrong. And it was wrong what Wemby did when he threw the elbow. Now, ultimately, the league said it wasn't worthy of a suspension, and I didn't have really a problem with that. But it's the same thing with last night. Was it a foul or was it not a foul? If the answer is yes, it was a foul, you have to call that foul. Even though we ended up getting a much more interesting ending, and even though overtime basketball between two rivals on the road in Detroit, that is fun. In a game 5, like, that's fun. That was a much more interesting ending. But you have to ask yourself, what are we? Are we an entertainment company, or are we going to start calling things like it is? Or are we going to start following the rule book? I think that the answer to both of those questions is yes. But I would rather have the officials call it like they see it, because I always believe that calls go your way and calls sometimes don't. And there is going to come a time in this series where the pendulum swings at some point and the other side is going to feel like they got slighted. And I hate talking about officiating. Should they have done it? Should they not have done it? Much more than we're talking about the actual basketball and the actual outcome of this series. But at the end of the day, Fitzy, this loss is 1, unacceptable for Detroit, 2, embarrassing for Detroit, and 3, I think devastating for Detroit. Because now what Detroit has to do in order to punch their ticket to the Eastern Conference Finals is do something that's really, really difficult. And that's not just win on the road, but it's win in a place where the Cavs have been so successful all postseason long, and that is in Cleveland. So I think we're going to look back at this game, at game 5, if Detroit falls short of the Eastern Conference Finals, and say that's when they lost it. That's when they blew it.
It took a Herculean effort from Donovan Mitchell the last game. Harden even referenced in this game that he knew that Mitchell would be a little gassed and he had to step up. A lot of points came from the free throw line, but a big night for Harden, a big night for Mobley. They got a big night across the board. But to your point, Caroline, now they've got to figure out who the next big night is going to come from for Cleveland. If you're the Pistons, the only comfort I can give you is remember, it's not that long ago you were down 3-1 in a series to Orlando, and we were all sitting here panicking, and you won. The only thing I tell you, though, is this isn't Orlando. This Cleveland team, while they may not have been juggernauts throughout the course of the season, have a lot of guys that have played a lot of playoff basketball, and you could see in the last 3 minutes the difference that made, the comfort in the moment that came from those superstars. So now the Pistons are going to have to find that comfort quickly and find a way to do something nobody's done so far this year, which is win a playoff game in Cleveland. It will be electric. All right, speaking of electric, LeBron out here giving us comments that are electric. What does it mean for his future in LA? We'll answer that question next.
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Jadarian Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you could make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
For what it's worth, this will be 3rd down at 25, just as it was in the first half. Neal, deep ball, got Williams, touchdown! 37 yards, Neal to Williams. The Wheelers back within 4.
That's the speed of Keon Williams. And Neal hooking up with him, looked his way the entire time. And when you give Keon Williams man coverage, he could beat anyone.
The truth here is this is a very far delineation from where the top of the quarterback game is right now, physically.
Correct.
You know, when you look at, you call the top 12 quarterbacks, everyone's got some sort of extreme physical trump card.
This ain't Taylor Green.
Part of the problem to me with this pick is you saw exactly where the physical limitations hurt Ty Simpson last year at Alabama.
Simpson is a pretty good athlete, but I'm not going to run design runs with him because you'll get crushed.
Sunday Night Football on Yahoo Sports Network. And Cook the squib kick. Tomas across the 10, cuts it at the 15, at the 20. One guy to beat, inside the 10, cuts it back 5. He's in! He's in! Touchdown, Nighthawks!
LeBron James felt like the Lakers took him for granted when Rob Pelinka didn't give him the game ball after he broke the record for most wins in NBA history. That per Dave McMenamin, who's done a very good job his entire career on reporting on LeBron James. And so, Caroline, if this is accurate, to me, it's stunning. It is stunning to me to hear this after the season, this far removed from it, when we hear from LeBron all the time that he doesn't care about the noise and he doesn't care about the accolades and he doesn't care what anybody thinks and he doesn't care what we have to say. He only cares about YouTube golf and he doesn't really pay attention to anything else. Well, apparently he cares immensely, at least about how his organization thanks him or credits him, because this to me is a pretty stunning report to come out right now.
I mean, LeBron can say all he wants about all that stuff is, not important. The only thing that matters is winning. But we all know LeBron likes to feel special. LeBron likes to get patted on the back. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's true. And it's part of the reason why I don't think LeBron James is done. And I do think he's coming back for next year. Because I think it is very much so LeBron James's personality to want to go on a goodbye tour, to be able to, sell out arenas and to really do it up and enjoy the theatrics of it all. LeBron loves that kind of stuff. And it's fine. Just admit to it. And, look, did he deserve the game ball after he broke the record for most wins in NBA history? Yeah, of course he did. I think that is so incredibly fair to pay homage to LeBron James and everything that he's achieved in his career. But is it the biggest deal ever? Is it enough to throw a stink and a temper tantrum and to cross your arms and curl up your lip and say, they don't like me? Of course not. That's immature. It's juvenile. It's ridiculous. It just sounds so like middle school. I do wonder, though, Fitzy, if this was just the straw that broke the camel's back. That there have been several incidences of LeBron not feeling special, of LeBron not feeling like the golden boy in Los Angeles, and that this was just kind of the cherry on top of it all. That he was already feeling that way, and this just set him over the edge. I think when it comes down to it, though, I don't think the Lakers are doing anything wrong. I just think LeBron is adjusting to life and being on a team that's not his. This is Luka Doncic's team. It is very clear who is the focal point of this organization. For the first time in LeBron James's life, he is not the number one go-to guy. He even talked about it. After the Lakers got swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder, he's like, this is the first time in my career where I'm not the first option, not the second option, but the third option. He clearly felt some type of way about that. And it's not just on the court, and he's feeling it off the court as well. LeBron wants to feel special, and the Lakers aren't making him feel special. And I don't necessarily fault the Lakers for that. I fault LeBron for needing to grow up and acknowledging where he's at in his career and the hierarchy of this organization.
this is what's difficult about this transition period for everybody, right? Like, I guess if you're, the word ego has a negative connotation, and I don't think it always should. I think when you've accomplished certain things, you've earned the right to be proud of who you are and what you're capable of, and proud of your body of work. I think we portray that as ego, but there are ways for people to look at it and say, "Hey, I've done this, and I'm proud of it." And I think it's fine for LeBron to look around and say, "I deserve respect." I honestly think it's fine for LeBron in the moment to be like, I should get a game ball. I just set a new record. Like that's game ball worthy. I have no problem with the emotion he felt. For the story to come out later, though, that means something's being held on to. That means it's being reported as a story. When somebody's talking to McMiniman, whether it's LeBron or whether it's somebody close to LeBron, somebody within the organization, that means that it was enough of a conversation piece that when McMiniman sits down with people, they say, "Oh man, let me tell you this story." That's bigger than just a wow, that kind of sucked. And frankly, if you're LeBron, there are a million ways you can handle this. You can walk into somebody's office, you can walk into Palenque and say, "I deserve the game ball, man. That wasn't the right way to do that." Like, you're LeBron. You can do whatever you want. The hard part about this is you're right. The Lakers are moving forward. The Lakers are moving into a new era, and they should be. LeBron and keeping LeBron happy should not be a focus at all for the Lakers. If the Lakers are really going to set up for the next generation, this needs to be Luka's team. And the only thing they should be worried about right now is who surrounds Luka in a way that gives Luka the best chance to win the most games. And if that happens to be LeBron, huzzah. And if it's not, then let LeBron go somewhere else and build your roster to win as many games around Luka as you possibly can. LeBron is a great moment and brand and piece of the Lakers if they want it. But LeBron's got to accept where that puts him. The Lakers have to accept where that puts him. And if moments like this become controversial, then it's not worth it for either side. If LeBron can't find joy in this process because he's not the first option, and the Lakers don't want to couch to that, they don't want to have to turn around and manage their expectations of that, then it should be a time for them to part ways. I don't think they're going to part ways, but if they can't figure out how to manage this situation better, Caroline, they should.
And I also just think this is hilarious because didn't the Lakers draft his son after 1 year in college where he averaged, like 8 points? Nobody believes that Bronny is like a legitimate NBA player and surely wasn't at the time of the draft. Didn't they hire his podcast co-host to be their head coach? Like, what more does LeBron James need to feel like all the warm and fuzzies, to feel like he's appreciated in that organization? I just think that is absolutely wild to me. And also, aren't the Lakers paying him $50 million a year? Like, in a game ball is the thing that is really going to be the sticking point for you. I think that we also have to consider the source. You mentioned this came from Dave McMenamin. Dave McMenamin has, a close working relationship with LeBron James, that he always has kind of the inside scoop with LeBron James. And, with all sorts of reporters, they have relationships with their sources. So, with reporters as well, information comes out when the source wants that information out. I always believe that and keep that in the back of my mind. In basketball reporting and sports reporting, things don't get out unless the source wants them to. So all of those things considered, LeBron James wanted this out. His people wanted this to see the light of day. But I think it makes LeBron look so immature and look so whiny. So why in the world would LeBron and his people want this to be known?
Yeah, it feels like this would be more something the Lakers want known, because they're looking around saying, "Look, we're trying. We can't even keep him happy." And I don't know. This is really difficult. Now, McMiniman also wrote that Cleveland, Golden State, New York, the Nuggets, and Clippers are the only viable destination outside of the Lakers. What do you think makes sense, Caroline?
It'll definitely, Cleveland will be at the top of all of the conversations for all of the obvious reasons. But Cleveland's up 3-2 in the Eastern Conference semifinals right now. If the Cavs punch their ticket to the Eastern Conference final, let's say lose to the Knicks in 5 or 6, how do you justify blowing that team up to make enough space for LeBron James? I don't really know. But Cleveland will definitely be at the top of the list. If it's not the Lakers, I think the overwhelming consensus is that it is Cleveland. I think Golden State, though, would be absolutely fascinating, especially if they decide to run it back with Steve Kerr, Steph Curry coming back. Yes, an old team is only getting older with a 41, 42-year-old LeBron James, but you can absolutely convince yourself that this team can go from barely skating into the postseason to being a legitimate contender with Steph and LeBron. I don't think New York makes sense. New York looks like they're headed to the NBA Finals. Same justification as the Cavs. If you get to the finals, why are you blowing it up and why are you, trying to fix what's not broken? I don't think Denver makes sense. I think Jokic and LeBron would drive each other absolutely crazy and absolutely bonkers. That doesn't make sense to me. The Clippers don't make sense. I do not see LeBron James spending his final couple of years in the NBA with the Clippers. So I think it's Cleveland, of course, will be at the top of the conversation. But if not Cleveland, Golden State makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of buy it. When you look across the board, I think the point on the Knicks that we've all made now is that the Knicks are playing so well. Why disrupt what they're doing to bring in LeBron when LeBron's not going to be a long-term solution? So if you're building long-term and you believe you're in a window, why do it? Cleveland makes sense because we love the nostalgic aspect of it. But I mean, again, are we adding, it depends on why we're adding LeBron. If we're adding LeBron because, boy, that'd be fun and a great conversation, then sure, add him to Cleveland, add him to Golden State. That's great. If you're LeBron and you're looking around and saying, I'm going to move, I'm going to uproot everything, I'm going to go somewhere else. If I'm going to move, uproot everything, and go somewhere else, I likely it needs to be someplace where either I'm having so much fun playing basketball that it's just electric, or it needs to be someplace where I genuinely think I'm going to win a championship. And I struggle to find where adding LeBron to Golden State makes Golden State better than OKC or San Antonio. I don't think it does. I don't think there's a team that would be interested in LeBron in the West that actually gets better than where OKC and San Antonio are about to be simply by adding LeBron. So then the question is, you go to the East, do you want to add LeBron so that you can get to the Western Conference Finals? But the hardest part about, or I should say the NBA Finals, the hardest part about all of this is I don't believe that LeBron, look, we just watched LeBron have to be the guy, the option, really do all of the heavy lifting. And what did it get the Lakers? It got the Lakers swept by OKC. LeBron is going to be great if he can be somewhere where he's the third option and continue what he did last year in a way that we're mesmerized by it, but he doesn't have to be Superman every single night. I just don't know how many opportunities or places present that. So I still think that the only real logical answer is LeBron ends up back with the Lakers. I think all of this is just about LeBron making sure the Lakers know he's not just coming back. He wants a warm, fuzzy hug. He wants some appreciation. He wants a big old teddy bear. He wants everybody to come in and say, we love you, LeBron, before he just signs. But I think ultimately he's going to end up with the Lakers because I can't put him anywhere else where he gets a championship ring. That's the hardest part for me. So plenty more to come on this. But by the way, we got to make sure we're all excited for what the summer's going to hold. Soccer action right around the corner. Before we break, the all-new 2026 Soccer Pick'em is here just in time for the world's biggest soccer tournament. You can make picks each round, earn points, and climb the leaderboard. You can play solo. You can create a private group of friends. You can join a public group to play with other fans, or even join our Yahoo Sports group to see if you can beat us. Trust me, you can. I'm filling this thing out, and it's going to be awful, but we're going to do it. So join us at yahoofantasy.com/soccer pick'em. That's where you get to it, yahoofantasy.com/soccer pick'em. We are going to cover plenty of the world's biggest soccer tournament right here all summer long. You don't want to miss it. Coming up next, we're going to get into the Steelers with an absolute expert. Urinating Tree going to join us.
Right back to work. TJ Edwards and Paxton DeLorette going blow for blow. Edwards. Oh, what a blitz pickup. Edwards to the end zone, and that is another touchdown. Third down. DeLorette throwing, coming back to make a great catch. Thomas Owens, the best receiver in the history of the franchise, just added another highlight to the reel.
Does the result even matter at this point? Is it a victory just making it to the fight and having a good performance, or do you really want to win as well?
I really want to win. I really want to win. Sitting here is a victory. I get a victory every single day. Walking out to that cage is going to be a victory. Having that first punch is going to be a victory. Every little victory. But no, I'm not. I wouldn't have taken this fight if I thought I couldn't win.
I think for the Raptors, what did they learn here? They learned like they're in a great spot. And then Scotty Barnes, welcome. You have achieved stardom. Like that's what this series was for Scotty Barnes. He became a star. The dude hit clutch bucket after clutch bucket, made big plays as a playmaker as well. He was too big or too quick, depending on the guy he was being defended by. He was incredible.
Myler gets the snap. Myler extends the play, throws on the run, finds Bruce. Bruce lowers his head, reaches for the end zone and scores. Great pass by Myler, better effort by Arlen Bruce. And this Arizona offense is grooving. They retake the lead with 9 seconds left in the half.
Aaron Rodgers was supposed to visit the Steelers over the weekend. That meeting reportedly never happened, per Brooke Pryor at ESPN. So for more on this and our our annual joy of an Aaron Rodgers watch, we bring in our resident Steelers fan, superstar YouTuber Urinating Tree. Man, appreciate you. All right, how exhausting is it for you constantly to have the Aaron Rodgers stuff come up?
Man, I was exhausted with this last year. That's the problem with it. The sad thing is the Steelers still believe that he is going to be the main piece that gets them over the top. And if you are looking to be a competitive team, he is the best option out there. But the problem is he's 42. He doesn't have the wheels he once had. Against elite defenses, he didn't do that well. And you're still trying to whim and cater to his demands, and you're still dealing with this circus. And my question is, okay, you might reunite with Mike McCarthy, but how much of that's really worth it? That's the question I have.
It's the question that I have too. And Aaron Rodgers is like dealing with a problematic boyfriend every single year. You're exhausted. I'm exhausted. We're all exhausted with the Aaron Rodgers saga. But based off of what you just said there, if you were in charge of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I am, granting you king status in Pittsburgh, how would you move forward with this team and at the quarterback position?
The question is, do you see them having a legitimate chance at like a playoff berth or something further than that? So my question is, you look at it twofold. If you see the team as a quarterback away from making it far, which I don't necessarily agree with because the team's pretty aging and they do have a lot of question marks in the future. But my question is, if he is going to be your guy, like he is the best option out there, he's been the best option out there. But are you getting prime Aaron Rodgers? Unfortunately, no. So, I mean, they had a hard deadline at the draft. That's passed. He was supposed to meet this weekend. Allegedly, he was in Pittsburgh, but that's passed. So, I mean, at this rate, I would give him a hard deadline of end of May and then see where it goes. Otherwise, I would roll with Mason. So I know they've done the unrestricted free agent tag, the transition tag of $15 million. But is anyone really knocking at the door for an Aaron Rodgers besides to be maybe a mentor backup? That's going to be your question. I think the only legitimate shot of a starting gig right now will probably be Pittsburgh and maybe Arizona if Jacoby Brissett keeps holding out.
Okay, so you mentioned you would go with Mason. Also, we all know Will Howard on this roster. Drew Aller was drafted by the Steelers this year. Is the future starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers currently on the roster in your mind?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of Will Howard hype, and I don't understand where this all came from because the dude, he barely practiced in training camp. He got hurt. He had a finger injury. He never played a preseason game. And there was a lot of, and he never played during the regular season. He's like, best example, he's our version of Shedeur Sanders. Like, there's a lot of, like, there are the Will Howard truthers. There's the Drew Aller, like, the Drew Aller cult in the background. You have Aaron Rodgers. There's, like, a couple people that favor him. I don't know what to really say. And I'm not really crazy about Drew Aller. I mean, I'm willing to give him a chance, but the problem is, like, he wasn't good at Penn State. There were a lot of times where he was in the clutch and he crumbled. You know, the Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, Northwestern, Notre Dame. Oh, I thought he was going to be a top 3 pick, and then he threw that really bad interception at the end of the game. I'm like, nope, that's not happening anymore. But in terms of whether it is, I mean, that's going to be revealed later on in this year. Maybe they find lightning in a bottle with a Will Howard or Drew Aller. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, like, he decides, you know what, I'm going to call it. And then it turns into just, okay, it's going to be a transition year. But at this point, it's who knows? Because, I mean, worst case scenario, they just completely flame out. I don't know, think that's going to happen, but as I said, it's just going to be a sort of scenario where, okay, you would have your quarterback of the future in that class, knock on wood. So, as I said, I wish I had a crystal ball and I could tell you that, okay, Drew Aller, like, they're going to rebuild him from the ground up. Maybe that's going to work. I mean, he does have a lot of tools. But that's just for the future to behold, I would say.
I mean, and sticking with that, it's fair to say Pittsburgh has a lot of question marks, pretty much only question marks in the quarterback room. Drew Aller, Will Howard, question marks. Aaron Rodgers, will he even be there as a question mark? So I'm going to ask you a question that I think is going to make you nauseous. So allow me to apologize in advance.
Okay.
Is it fair to say that the Browns have a better quarterback room than the Pittsburgh Steelers do right now?
What? Come on. No. Don't say that. Come on. We don't have a gigantic albatross contract of Deshaun Watson, and you may have to start him at this rate. Come on. Yeah, they have 4 quarterbacks, and none of them are guaranteed to do anything. You have Dylan Gabriel, who, I mean, Pro Bowler Shedeur Sanders, who's pretty much the modern version of Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley. And you have Deshaun Watson. And you have, I believe, the 6th round pick. I forget. I can't think of his name off the bat, but really fast player.
Taylor Green
with his arm. Dylan Green, sorry. He's the fastest 40 time of a quarterback in ages with a 4.3. But as I said, I would rather take the Steelers quarterback room with the questions of a 1-year fix that you can immediately flip over if nothing works out than being stuck with a Deshaun Watson and have to be constantly reminded that I'm trading 3 first-round picks for the guy.
So, as a Steelers fan, how weird is it? Like, is for me covering the Steelers, I'm so used to Mike Tomlin being the coach of the Steelers. Sometimes I forget that Mike Tomlin is no longer the coach of the Steelers. Like, we're just so used to it. For you with this team, how has it felt different already that Tomlin is no longer going to be on the sidelines?
I think it's the stability of everything. I think because remember, he was starting as a head coach when I was a sophomore in college. It's been 20 years. I know it had long been time, but it's still that sort of feeling like, okay, like the old neighbor across the street that, you said hi to when you grabbed your newspaper every morning. It was that kind of like knowledge of that, okay, no matter what, he's probably going to be there until the job, like he doesn't want it anymore. And that moment has finally come. And it's surreal that he's not going to be there. I know he's going to do well on TV, especially on NBC. But I know with the new era, I feel like the Steelers were kind of shocked that he left because I think they were comfortable with keeping him on until he stepped down, and then they bring in Mike McCarthy, and I don't know how long he's going to last. I don't know if he's going to be here 20 years, but at the same time, it's the same feeling I had when Cowher left in 2006, where he was the only coach I'd known, especially as a kid, and then he's gone. He decided to step down, had dealt with burnout. And he had, family stuff that had happened throughout the year in 2006. But it's kind of like a bittersweet feeling. Best way to say it.
You mentioned it. He'll be on NBC this upcoming season on Football Night in America. Based off of what you know about Mike Tomlin, and I'm sure that Pittsburgh Steelers fans feel like they do know Mike Tomlin after having, him around for as long as he was in Pittsburgh. Do you think that he'll be on, that'll be the rest of his career, that he'll be on TV for the foreseeable future? Or do you think he'll get that itch to get back on the sideline?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I see that he can do it. I mean, my example is Bill Cowher. There were a bunch of rumors throughout the years that he would come back to coaching, that he would, coach the Browns. There were a bunch of rumors linking him with a few other jobs, but at the same time, he's been in CBS for 20 years. He's been a mainstay and staple. And I think what benefits that is that you're still connected to the game of football, but you don't have to deal with the stress of being a head coach. You don't have to deal with the long hours. You don't have to deal with the constant criticism from media and schmucks like me. You don't have to deal with any of the egos of a locker room. You don't have to deal with, say, the whims and fancies of a potential ownership that may throw you and can you. I know the Steelers aren't really that way, but there are a lot of teams that are. So I think with the salary he's going to get, it's just, I would guess it's pretty comparable to his coaching salary. Plus, with the lower stress, the amount of time he can spend with family, his kids have grown up. I know Dino graduated from the University of Maryland, his son, as well as, spent time with his wife and like extended family. There's a lot he hasn't seen and experienced. So maybe I feel like he could eventually just get lost in that. At the end of the day, he has nothing left to prove at the NFL level. He's already going to Canton. And now you have to ask, why would you risk that for potentially a stint, say, for example, like a Mike Holmgren, where he comes back to be an executive for the Browns. It just does not go well. That's my question.
So you're obviously diehard Steelers all the way through and through. Pittsburgh just hosted the draft. I know you got a chance to go to some of it. What was the city like for that experience?
It was phenomenal. I know the city of Pittsburgh, the NFL did a tremendous job. I actually wore this jersey to the draft. It's like a custom one that Nick Kovac, shout out to him.
Let's
go. Actually, we did a video last year about off-brand NFL merchandise, and this is one of the stuff that came out. Actually turned out really well. So I mean, I was down there for days 2 and 3. Day 1, I did live from my house. I wish I wanted to go down there, but unfortunately, it just got a little too crowded. And also, there was a lot of issues with potential internet latency. I couldn't get the permissions. But I know days 2 and 3, I was just more down there as a fan. I was just soaking it all in. There were a lot of things to do. You were able to access the stadium. You were able to see how the North Shore and Point State Park transformed. And everything was clean. It was efficient. I know there was gateway clippers between the Allegheny River. I know that was going to be an issue. I was worried everyone was going to be traveling across the Fort Duquesne Bridge, which is a very narrow path. But they kept it clean. They kept it concise. There were no real grumblings. I mean, minus the $20 beers, but that's pretty standard. But I know in terms of a draft experience, it was an excellent phenomenon. I couldn't trade it for the world. And actually, I'm probably going to go to DC with 5 Points Vids, who's my partner in crime as well. Shout out to him. And I'll be probably enjoying that experience in 2027.
It looked absolutely insane on TV. The camera kept panning out and zooming out, and I'm like, there's more and more people. There's people for miles and miles. It was so cool to see everyone show out in Pittsburgh. One of my favorite moments from the draft was Eli Heidenreich, the running back out of Navy, the leading receiver in Navy history. He's from Pittsburgh. He got to be at the draft, got drafted by the Steelers. You were there on that day, right?
Yeah, I was. I left before that moment, but once again, he's a dude who had almost 1,000 yards receiving at Navy, a notorious running back school. So I know I don't know if he's going to pan out in the end, but you just got to have the feels, and that's the kind of feel-good moment you have, as well as I believe there were a few international players that got drafted as well, which is a tremendous moment for the growth of the game of the NFL as well. I got to give a shout out to one guy, Jennings Dunker. Have you seen that mullet and that mustache, round 3? That dude looks like a Hall of Famer as is. I feel like Culver's, you need to get on this, open up something in the Southside Flats, get it there. So now I know with a day 3 pick, 7th round, he could be something. He could just, be a special teamer. With Heidenreich, I don't mean to keep bouncing around. I'm sorry, but I know in terms of with Heidenreich, I mean, that's a memory he's never going to forget, especially the area of Mount Lebanon where he grew up, went to high school. They are absolutely loving that pick.
Well, we love your coverage of the Steelers. We love the energy you bring. You guys can follow him on Twitter X at Urinating Tree. Obviously, check him out on YouTube. Shows the smashing success there. So, congrats, man. Like, you got to keep hanging out with us as the Steelers continue to get through this. When Aaron Rodgers finally figures out what he's doing, we got to have you back on. We'll figure it out from there. We appreciate your time, brother. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Absolutely. Hopefully it ends soon. Knock on wood.
Great stuff from Urinating Tree. Always great work. Coming up, speaking of the NFL, schedule release updates out there and the facts you need to know.
Myler gets the snap. Myler looks down the field. Bruce caught it! Touchdown! Owen Bruce, player of the game. Perfect throw.
Yeah, that was great
catch.
throw. Great play at a critical moment there.
Myler gets the snap. Myler looks. It's going to be a broken play. Needs to get rid of it. He does!
Oh my
it's
gosh.
caught!
Wow.
What put you over the top to I want to go to Indiana?
I was really close to going to a couple other schools. However, the point that really cemented me into Indiana is Coach Signetti really focusing on the development. His big selling point was, hey, I don't know, other schools are trying to sell you on if we're going to win a national championship, if we're going to win all these games. I just know one thing I can do is develop quarterbacks.
This is insane. There were people that showed up tonight with Fernando Mendoza jerseys already, so they were a little bit nervous, but nothing to be nervous about. Remember, guys, in my lifetime as a Raiders fan, only 2 other times have they selected a quarterback in the first round. We're talking about Jamarcus Russell, who's essentially Voldemort to Raiders fans everywhere, and Todd Marinovich. But at the end of the day, it has been a long time since this fan base had a quarterback they could plant their flag with. This is why Raider Nation is so exciting.
Does Orlando win it in overtime, or does this instant classic continue? Deep drop and throw, end zone, Thomas Owens, that's an Orlando overtime winner. That is the most decorated receiver in the history of the franchise. Of course, he's the one to end it.
I laugh because that's me. Reminder, if you see the release and think the league is for or against any team, the opponents are predetermined based on rotation already laid out for the next several years, and where you finished in the standing last year only impacts 3 games per season. Also a formula. That is the ever overly logical me reminding everybody that there's over logic in the schedule. If you've never done this before, you can go out right now and you can Google your team, your favorite team, their schedule for the next 10 years. And 14 of the 17 games have already been announced. 14 of the 17 games with their locations have already been announced. The only part of the schedule that is a variable is at the end of the year when the schedule's locked in, at the end of the year when the standings are locked in from last year. If you finish in third, you will play every other third place team in your conference. So the couple of the games that are added are additional teams that finished in the same place. Also, the where of that is determined. It's predetermined. So they already know at this team, home this, nothing that we're going to find out tonight at 8 p.m. is new information. It's just a lot of people don't know that, Caroline. So I have to tell everybody because, sure, the when and the how, the machinations here matter, but the who and the where is determined for the next decade already before anybody decides that the league has it out for their favorite team.
Womp womp. Fitz is no fun.
There we go.
Kill
and joy.
The where and the who. Yes, that's important. But what you get from the schedule is also something that I think is equally as important. And that's the when. Because the Steelers know they're going to play the New England Patriots. But there's a big difference between playing the New England Patriots in September and going to New England in December. There's a big difference between getting the Lions indoors in Detroit versus getting, the Browns outdoors in Cleveland. There is a big difference in terms of weather. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this league that don't play well in cold weather games. That's, I think, a big factor in all of this. I think also, you can look at the schedule as 17 individual components. I don't. I look at the schedule as one massive conglomerate. So when you get certain teams, are you playing the Buffalo Bills coming off of a bye when you just played on Monday Night Football? Well, that does not go in your favor. Are you going on a West Coast road trip the game after you have to play that, that crazy Houston Texans defense? Well, I think that matters. So where does your bye fall? I think is also important. Do you play 7 straight games before you get a bye week? On the other hand, do you get your bye week in like week 3? Well, that kind of stinks. And then you have to go, on 3 consecutive road trips. So I think that all of those things matter. All of those things are a factor. And these are all topics of conversation. We're in the middle of the season. We say, okay, well, X team just came off of an incredibly physical game against Y team on the road. Now they have to go back on the road. Or this team is coming off a bye. They've got a couple rinky-dink games. They're going to be well rested for this really important divisional matchup. So yes, I know, the opponents and everybody wants to suck the fun out of everything. But one, schedule releases are very fun. And this is the Super Bowl for social media teams everywhere. And I love to see the creativity being flexed here. But also there are important football factors at play here.
You're right. And the analytics nerd in me for a second will push my non-existent glasses up and remind everybody that modern times, what they're saying right now, the biggest difference you will possibly see is days of rest. How many times are you playing an opponent that has more or less days of rest? The last 3-4 years, the studies on this are through the roof. The view on it is through the roof. If you're consistently playing teams that have more rest than you do, you're at a disadvantage. There's huge parts of it. And you're right, Carolina. As a Raiders fan, I already know that this year the Raiders will play in New England and they will play in New York, for example. Well, what's that look like? Are those going to be 2 games in December, or is there going to be 1 week in New England? Then you have to fly to San Francisco for that game and then back to New England? I don't know. Or back to New York. So all of that makes a big difference. You are right. I just think everybody needs to calm down a little bit because most people seem to think that there's an evil devil in a room that's like, how can I screw this team with the schedule? It just doesn't work that way. In fact, now there are on the international series, teams can try and protect certain games, but once it goes into the algorithm, computer kicks it out. So like, this isn't Roger Goodell sitting in there saying, what can I do to be nasty to the Raiders? The computer picks out like a version of it. They look at it, they're like, yeah, that works. Or they say, computer, do it again. The thought that they're going to go in, Titans fans, they're going to go in and say, well, this looks really good, but it's too favorable to the Titans. So let's make sure that we redo the entire algorithm just so we can screw one fan. Like, it just doesn't happen. I might have bought it 25 years ago when somebody was sitting in a room spending thousands of hours. Now a computer kicks it out. That's all I'm saying.
I also love the topic of conversation, and I always hear this from fans of bad teams, the Titans, the Cardinals, the Jets, you know them, the Raiders. I love it whenever those fans of teams, I call this hope season or everything is going to be fine season, because all we have is hope and all we have is, this idea that your team's going to be amazing. I heard this a lot when I was doing radio in Nashville of, well, we have a really easy schedule this year. You're a bad team. The teams that you're looking at on your schedule, it's like, oh, well, we get the Jets and we get the rebuilding Saints and we get the all of these teams. They're saying that about you too. So if you are a fan of a bad team and you are talking yourself into, well, we have a really easy schedule this year, you're still bad. Sorry.
Yeah,
I think the real beneficiaries of go ahead.
I've always said that, if other teams are looking at you as the gimme, you can't look at them as the gimme too. Like, it just doesn't work that way. You're right. And the strength of schedule thing is a little interesting. Like Jordan Schultz tweeted out yesterday, instead of using strength of schedule, I think he's right. You should be using the metric that gives you the Vegas win totals, because the Vegas win totals are more of a projection of rather than worry about where a team finished last year, look at what Vegas projects a team is going to do this year. And if you look at strength of schedule last year versus the Vegas win totals, you'll see that what looks like a difficult schedule gets much different based on, because last year's win schedule or last year's win percentage doesn't factor in all of the offseason moves. Vegas, in theory, is trying to do that.
And also injuries. Like, I look at the Bengals. The Bengals have an easy peasy schedule because last year Joe Burrow was largely unavailable. I think that's when strength of schedule kind of comes into factor. Is a good team with a good quarterback or a great roster or a great head coach, whatever it might be, that just got some bad luck the previous year. Well, now they're the beneficiaries of playing some of these bad teams. Whereas if you are a bad team playing more bad teams, it's not really a luck of the draw there.
Now we get good teams, we think, in the season opener. I love this. Not everybody does. This seems contentious. It's been leaked. Week 1, we're getting a Super Bowl rematch. I don't know, Caroline. Like, again, knowing that these opponents are preset, I think you can make life easy. When you look at it and say, wow, are the two teams that just played in the Super Bowl going to play each other again next season? If the answer is yes, why wouldn't you bookend, hey, this is where we stopped, this is where we start. We finished last season with this moment. We're going to relive the moment now while we start the new season, knowing that New England was already set to play Seattle this year. Why would they not open the season? I actually really like this if this is how it turns out.
I love this. And I love the fact that we get this game in Seattle. We let Seahawks fans kind of pump their chests and celebrate the Super Bowl season and rub it in New England Patriots fans' faces. I love this. It's going to be a blast. The lead up to it is going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fact. Like, to me, that we'll spend so much of the lead up to it celebrating the Super Bowl last year, celebrating these two teams, reminding ourselves how last season ended. It's almost like when you haven't watched a show in a long time and they start with the last season on, it gives you the opportunity to do that and get everybody caught up. I love this. Another game leak we got Thanksgiving Eve, so the biggest party night. I did not know this until a few years ago. This is quite literally the biggest bar night in America by sales is Thanksgiving Eve. And now sports bar is going to be packed. Packers, Rams, Thanksgiving Eve on Netflix. What do we think?
Well, first of all, when it comes to the biggest party night on a Blackout Wednesday, I will take the Green Bay Packers faithful in a party off way more than I will Rams fans. So if I have to choose which fan base I want to hang out with this night, it's the Green Bay Packers, and it's not even close. Not just that, I mean, this matchup is epic and awesome. The entire Thanksgiving slate is incredible. I mean, you get divisional matchups, you get, rivalries, you get games of impact, you get games that matter. Like the slate that we're getting, this game included, is enough to make me have to apologize to my family because I will be largely unavailable on Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a historic ratings grab for Thanksgiving. We've spent years here wondering what the NFL could do to make some of their landmark tentpole events even bigger. When you see the schedule that they are reportedly giving us throughout the course of Thanksgiving Eve, then on to Thanksgiving Day, then even on to Black Friday, it truly is just going to absolutely eclipse the entire sports calendar. Everything's going to stop. We're all going to be watching football. The Thanksgiving matchups, if the teams are healthy and what we think they're going to be, giving us division rivalries in that situation, I love. Giving us that extra heat, I absolutely love. I think that the Thanksgiving weekend slate is just a reminder that, in sports, for a peek behind the curtain, we do this at Yahoo. You look at certain things on the calendar at the beginning of the year and you say, what are our tentpole events? What are the things that we need to make sure that we absolutely crush as a company? It is clear that the NFL looked around and said, tentpole events, Thanksgiving Day. How do we turn Thanksgiving Day into an entire Thanksgiving weekend? How do we make sure that all of Thanksgiving is consumed with the NFL? And I think they've absolutely done an incredible job of this. I'm often tough on commissioners, and I think you have to give them credit where credit is due. Their approach to Thanksgiving Day, Caroline, I think Thanksgiving weekend as a whole is absolutely staggering to me. And what I can't wait to see for the schedule release is what they do for the rest of the holidays. How do they now attack? Do they attack Christmas Day with the same level of we will win this day the way that they're attacking Thanksgiving? This is brilliant planning by the league.
I mean, they have in the past. Right? We got Chiefs Texans one year on Christmas Day. We got Lions Vikings one year on Christmas Day. I mean, we got games and matchups of impact. And I think Roger Goodell, more than any other commissioner, and the NFL more than any other professional league, has achieved this sense of we want to take something over and we will do it. I mean, the NBA owned Christmas Day for so long. And then Roger Goodell said, nope, it's mine now. And so now it's NFL's day. After Chris Basketball was the NBA's for so long. That the NFL has said, look, we've had Thanksgiving for a long time, but now we want more. It's like Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka. More. So that's exactly what they did. Oh, you want Eagles Cowboys? Chiefs, Bills, some of the best rivalries that we have, historically and in the modern NFL, will give you that. And oh, yeah, by the way, we'll also take over Friday too. And oh, yeah, by the way, we have rivalry week in college football on Saturday. So I hope that you've cleared your calendars.
Yeah, as you said, some of the biggest rivalries, and we look at that Thanksgiving slate, that's all I kept thinking about. Is this a teaser to the NFL turning Thanksgiving into their own rivalry weekend, essentially making sure we give you the best rivalries because it is rivalry weekend in college football. So how do they match that energy at a professional level? Well, if there's anything we know, the NFL doesn't do that accidentally. I mean, Bears, Lions, Eagles, Cowboys, those are division rivalries. But you're right, Chiefs, Bills has become the modern version, this generation's version of what Colts, Patriots was for a long time. Like these are the two year in and year out, two of the best teams. And certainly the expectation if these teams are healthy is going to be absolutely epic. So, yeah, it's interesting to see if they turn that into something. All right. Obviously, we've got plenty. And by the way, tomorrow we will be stacked. We will make sure that we cover every ounce of the schedule. So if you're like me and you choose not to waste hours and hours and hours tonight watching a slow release of it all, fear not. We'll have it all covered tomorrow on Yahoo Sports Daily. But the release will happen tonight for everybody that loves it. And by the way, on Monday, get your popcorn ready. There's even more football coming at you here from this place. Ready? Caroline and I will be live from the American Dream Mall for the IFL Cup. We've landed the exclusive must-see sit-down with two gentlemen that do not like each other, head coach Kevin Guy, head coach Mike Davis.
It's going to be so much fun. I mean, these two coaches got into a viral, heated exchange on the field just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, you can find it on social media. It was absolutely everywhere. So who knows what will happen between them, not just on the field, but potentially on our show, live on Yahoo Sports Daily, in person from American Dream Mall on Monday morning, 9/11 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, our normal time. The festivities begin with IFL action all day long.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to put mics in their faces right as they were arguing. You see it there, and you'll see me come running up in just a minute. And I'll tell you this, it's most nervous. We're about to be the most nervous I've ever been with a live show, putting a mic in front of two coaches, because it is going to get heated. Again, you can check that out. Hang out with us. We'll be covering the IFL Cup live from American Dream Monday morning right here. We'll get you caught up on everything else you need to know, but the IFL Cup is going to be a big part of our Monday show. All right. Coming up next from the football world, back to the hard court, AJ Dybantsa making it clear where he wants to play. How should the league react?
There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Darren Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you can make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
For what it's worth, this will be third down at 25, just as it was in the first half. Neal, deep ball, got Williams, touchdown! 37 yards, Neal to Williams. The Wheelers back within 4.
That's the speed of Keon Williams. And Neal hooking up with him, looked his way the entire time. And when you give Keon Williams man coverage, he could beat anyone.
The truth here is this is a very far delineation from where the top of the quarterback game is right now, physically.
Correct.
You know, when you look at, you call the top 12 quarterbacks, everyone's got some sort of extreme physical trump card.
This ain't Taylor Green.
Part of the problem to me with this pick is you saw exactly where the physical limitations hurt Ty Simpson last year at Alabama.
Simpson is a pretty good athlete, but I'm not going to run design runs with him because you'll get crushed.
Sunday Night Football on Yahoo Sports Network. And Cook the squib kick. Tomas across the 10, cuts it at the 15, at the 20. One guy to beat, inside the 10, cuts it back 5. He's in! He's in! Touchdown, Nighthawks!
AJ Dybantsa's preference is reportedly to remain in Utah and get drafted by the Jazz, per Adam Finkelstein. And it's interesting because I'm trying to figure out who benefits from leaking this information, Caroline. You and I talk about it all the time. When the leak comes out, got to figure out who benefits from it, and then you know who leaked it. But in this situation, Washington has the first pick after winning the lottery. Utah has the second pick. AJ Dybantsa's played his college ball at BYU. He's made it clear he wanted to go someplace with no distractions. His family likes him being there. Now we're getting the report that he wants to be there. It's interesting because also, I'm going to add a little bit this extra little nugget for it, okay? We're going to add more context to this. This is AJ on the KOC show in 2025 talking about something that will blow your mind for where he wants to play. Check it out.
Whoever drafts me. I don't really have a specific team. But I mean, I just, when I was talking, I just liked Wemby.
You get media trained to say whatever team drafts you now?
Nah, like, I was watching more basketball games, and I'm like, I mean, I think I can fit in on any team. I'm just watching, I'm like, I mean, I don't know if I want to. I was saying it because, like, no tax. Because Dallas, no, San Antonio and Orlando. But I mean, I think I could really fit in anywhere depending on my play style.
I mean, that's a good reason.
Yeah. But if you really think basketball wise, I don't know, whoever gets hopefully the number one pick.
AJ out here worried about state income taxes. What do we make of all of this, Caroline?
First of all, I don't think I knew what state income taxes even were when I was 19 years old. So tip of the cap to all of these financially savvy young college players out there. AJ Dybantsa is very smart and is very calculated in what he says. We've had him on the show twice, and he never says the wrong thing. He never puts his foot in his mouth. He never shows his cards. He's really smart. So I don't think that he would be the one to come out and say, no, I want to stay in Utah. Although if he did, that would make a whole lot of sense, right? He spent the past couple of years in Utah. He talks about how much he loves BYU and the BYU faithful. He spent the last couple of years in high school in Utah. So if he wants to stay in a place that has at least become home for him, like I do get that. But you mentioned the source. I have been considering the source of this. I don't think it's the Utah Jazz, because why would the Jazz, who have the second overall pick, show their cards and allow any other team, whether it's Memphis or Chicago or any other team at the top of the draft, leapfrog Utah in order to grab AJ Dybantsa if that's their guy? Because the Wizards have come out and said, look, we're going to shop the number one pick around, which I think they should. They should be putting that out there. It makes the most sense for me if the Washington Wizards want this out, because they're kind of dangling AJ Dybantsa like, oh, Utah, he wants to be in Utah. Utah wants him, kind of driving up the price for the number one overall pick. If they do, in fact, want to field some offers and do, in fact, feel serious about, giving up the number one overall pick. Overall, though, I understand, the report that says AJ Dybantsa wants to stay in Utah. I get it. I get that. I understand AJ Dybantsa saying, hey, I want to avoid state income taxes. Because when you're making tens of hundreds of millions of dollars, 6% state income tax, like that's going to take a pretty big hit. But overall, Fitzy, it's not up to him. Like, this is not free agency. If AJ Dybantsa was taking an NBA free agency tour, then I would think that we could take all of those things into consideration. State income taxes, is he close to home? Where can he compete? Where can he fit into, a certain team and their constructs? But this isn't free agency. This is the draft, and it's not up to AJ Dybantsa. It is up to the Washington Wizards and the Utah Jazz and every other team picking at the top of the draft about whether they believe AJ Dybantsa fits in, and Cam Boozer and Darren Peterson and Caleb Wilson. Insert all of these young, talented players here. It's not up to them. It's up to those teams.
1,000%. And when we talk about who could have leaked this, the only benefit I see for Utah leaking it is they're trying to make it clear that AJ only wants to play in one place so that nobody decides to take him first overall, and he's just
but who cares?
Falls to second overall. But like I agree with you. And there's the video meme, whatever, going out right now where, LeBron is like, not you, anybody but you, not you, as he goes to the free throw line. That's how I felt about this report when I saw it with the Utah Jazz, because Jazz fans were collectively losing their minds a year ago when Ace Bailey reportedly didn't want to play for Utah. And the amount of times I heard people say, oh, doesn't matter. We're going to take him if we want him. It's not up to him. It's up to us. And now we get reports, well, AJ doesn't want to play anywhere but Utah. Well, then bring him to the Jazz, not you. Nope. As a fan base, you do not get to celebrate this. You do not get to champion this. You do not get to spread this information because you were the same fan base a year ago complaining about the same exact type of behavior from a different player. So we're not going to allow that level of hypocrisy around here. At the end of the day, where he wants to play doesn't matter. And I even hear the concept on taxes, and this is where my life as a touring musician comes into play. I have a lot of knowledge on how state-by-state taxes work. And a lot of people don't realize this, but you're taxed. Most of us, if you live in a state, you pay your state income taxes. You understand that. And right now, frankly, so much of the time that he spends in NIL, he being AJ Dybantsa, he's mostly in and around Utah. So most of his money is being made there. He's not being paid specifically to play games in specific states. So I understand why this is on his mind. When you start playing in the NBA, you pay taxes in every single city that you play games in. So every time you play in New York, you still have to pay a New York tax. In fact, oftentimes they talk about the fact that Tennessee doesn't have state income tax. That's true, but there are still jock taxes, as they call them, applied to games that take place in Nashville. So taxes still hit. Realistically, the difference on this, I had ChatGPT do the math for me. If AJ Dybantsa was selected number 1 overall by Washington versus being selected number 1 overall, same spot by Utah, what would the tax difference be for him? It would only be on the games that were played at home. So it's only half the NBA schedule to start with. And then from that difference, it works out to be about $500,000 a year total. On his rookie contract, it would be a $500,000 difference per year to be drafted by Washington tax-wise versus being drafted by Utah. So even though we make a big deal of it, then you got to ask yourself from an athlete standpoint, can I make up $500,000 in the Washington, D.C. metro area, making appearances and doing other ads on billboards, doing radio, doing shows? Can I make up more than $500,000 in opportunity? How often do we sit here and say, oh, you should want to play for this team or in this city because there's more opportunity? There's more financial opportunity in the Washington, D.C. district, I'm sorry, for AJ Dybantsa than there is, I'm sorry, in the state of Utah. So it's short-sighted even to look at taxes as part of this. So to me, I'm listening to this and I'm rolling my eyes at all of it. I don't really care where AJ wants to go. Washington shouldn't care where he wants to go. Washington should do their analysis. If he's the top player on the board, take him and let everybody else kiss their butts on the way out the door.
I think where taxes really do come into play is when you're talking about two very stark differences. Talked a lot about this when I was doing radio in Nashville. Of course, Tennessee, a no state income tax state. I worked for the radio affiliate of the Nashville Predators. We talked a lot of hockey, and there were free agents that would be deciding between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Nashville Predators. Well, we're talking about one of the most expensive cities to live in North America with incredibly high taxes. You're talking about two different currencies. So however you get your paycheck, there's going to be a conversion rate. You're going to lose some of it. And then you're talking about Nashville, where there's no state income tax. The cost of living is so much lower that there's probably a difference of millions of dollars of what you actually take home, even though you mentioned, your paycheck in certain cities, your paycheck in different countries is going to be different. You're going to be taxed that way. But still, if you're claiming residency in a non-state income tax state versus Canada, that's going to be a massive difference. But to your point, the Washington, D.C. area, whether you're living in D.C. proper, which has incredibly high income tax, or Maryland or Virginia, the DMV area versus Utah, yes, there's going to be differences of percentage points, absolutely. And yes, there's going to be differences of, let's say, $500,000, which sounds like a lot of money to me. I don't want to lose $500,000 in taxes. But when you're making an obscene and absurd amount of money that AJ Dybantsa is going to be making in the NBA, the difference is negligent. So I do think the tax conversation comes up if you're talking about the Orlando Magic versus the Toronto Raptors. But there are other cities where it's like, okay, is it really that big of a difference? Like, are you really going to, go to one city or another just based off of the difference of tens of thousands or maybe just a couple $100,000? I doubt it. I do think there's almost an argument to be made here about, kind of the NIL era in college. that I think there's a really beautiful thing that's happening with young college athletes, and that they're feeling empowered, that they have a voice, that they are business people. The transfer portal allows you to take control of your story and of your own narrative, that you can negotiate some of these deals. You can negotiate your contract. Like, we just heard it. There was one SEC head coach that said that a recruit asked if a hot tub and a sauna could be built in his apartment. Like, these players are asking for these things because there's a lot of schools and coaches that'll say, yes, whatever it takes. So now we're kind of seeing that bleed into the professional level, where those kind of demands just don't really exist, just aren't really allowed. Because in the college world, you're living in the wild, wild west. You can ask for literally anything. In the NBA world, you get paid tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, and you're living in a CBA world. You're living in a union world where those demands just simply will not be tolerated. So I'm not saying that AJ Dybantsa can't express his needs or his wants, or any other player can't say, hey, I want to play here, I don't want to play here. You can have those feelings and you can have those wants and needs, but they will not be catered to. And professional organizations will not bend the knee to you as much as maybe your college program did.
And that's a great point. Also, it's just going to take so much, I think, adjustment for guys coming out of college, because they are used to, getting paid through NIL, which is not the same. Mm-hmm. And I know this is where we argue about the semantics of this, but like, getting paid NIL money is not the same as when you get contracted to play in the NBA. The way all of that is handled is different. And you're right, the adjustment to all of it, like according to some reports coming into this season, AJ Dybantsa was getting as much as $7 million from BYU. Like, we've seen all sorts of numbers that are out there. So you talk about somebody that's already made generational wealth. And now that's part of why, to your point, when we were kids, we weren't worried about these things, because most of us weren't in a situation as kids where we were the CEO of a company. Now, if you're a great college basketball player, you are not just a great college basketball player. You are a CEO. This is where everybody turns around then and says, in an NIL world, well, this is why we got to protect these kids, because they don't know how to pay taxes. I would just remind you, nobody protected me when I was lucky enough to be in a band that suddenly had a hit song. Nobody told me I was going to have to file taxes in all 50 states, Canada, and Europe. Nobody told me until I actually made a little bit of money that I was going to have to do those things. You know what I did when that happened? I had somebody look at me and say, hey, man, you better get a tax guy. And that's what I did. That's the same thing every one of these guys are doing that are playing. But you're right, Caroline. Like, through this process, they're gaining information. They're learning about it. They're running empires. They're learning how to invest in businesses. They're interacting with CEOs of companies everywhere. They're starting an investment portfolio at an age where half of us were just worried about going out to frat parties and getting drunk. So it's particular, of course, if you're AJ Dybantsa and you're asked specifically where you want to play, thinking about taxes is a beautiful thing. If you want to leak where you want to play because you want to try and impact it, I don't blame you. Want to impact your destiny. But you are right. At the end of the day, this is as simple as NBA teams are going to do what's best for NBA teams. Same conversation we had about Ace Bailey. It doesn't matter where he wants to play. He's going to have to go where he has to go. If you're AJ, he's going to have to go where he has to go. And that's just an unfortunate reality. That is an adjustment. And that's part of what I think the new level of NBA rookie stardom is. It's not just, it used to be about learning how to be a pro. Now I think you already come in as a pro and you've got to learn how to be a rookie. It's a much different situation.
Do you remember all of the reports that came out? I want to say it was in a book, but Caleb Williams' dad was saying, hey, if we're going to Chicago, we're going to the XFL. If we're, it made all of these demands about Caleb Williams' future. And I thought that's the craziest thing ever, that this guy would miss out on what, $55 million or whatever his rookie deal is in order to go to the XFL or the UFL. And no disrespect to the XFL or the UFL, but it's not the NFL, nor is the money that you're going to make even compared to what you're going to make in the NFL. But still, Caleb Williams' dad felt emboldened to and brazen enough to make those kinds of demands. Now, I'm not saying that that's what AJ Dybantsa is doing. Like, we're getting one report saying, hey, I might want to stay in Utah. Great. That's wonderful. I'm sure you do want to stay in Utah because Utah is a beautiful place and I have heard wonderful things about Swig. I don't blame you. I'm sure you want to stay in Utah. But we are seeing so many more demands, seeing so many more stories about these college players saying, hey, we know our value. We know our worth. We know our worth not just on the football field or on the basketball court, but we know our value from a marketing standpoint. We know our value from an NIL standpoint. And that's not just NIL and what you can make in college. That is NIL and name, image, and likeness, appearing on commercials, doing social media campaigns. These players now know what they are worth. And it really is such a beautiful thing to see 18, 19, 20-year-olds become, real estate tycoons and become entrepreneurs and become millionaires because they're cashing in on their talent. But there always will be, or there is becoming that kind of effect in the NBA. But at the end of the day, all of these changes that we've seen in college sports and all of this empowerment that we're seeing from college athletes, the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, Major League Baseball, they're all the same. And they're all still multi-billion-dollar corporations who have collectively bargained to have control over these players coming out of college. So the players can exercise as much control as they have. At the end of the day, the Washington Wizards can say, oh, you want to stay in Utah? Too bad. You're coming to play for us.
Yeah, and I was just one more nerdy moment here. I'll remind you that most professional athletes are aware of, obviously, you don't have to be a resident of the state where you play your games.
Sure.
So as long as they maintain residence somewhere else and spend part of the offseason there, he can still be a Utah resident for all that extra money. All right, plenty more to break down on AJ Dybantsa being dirty rich. Good for him. Congratulations. Also, I love Utah. We love the Knicks. Coming up, we'll break down everything you need to know about this Knicks team. Monica McNutt going to join us next.
Right back to work. TJ Edwards and Paxton DeLorette going blow for blow. Edwards. Oh, what a blitz pickup. Edwards to the end zone, and that is another touchdown. Third down. DeLorette throwing, coming back to make a great catch. Thomas Owens, the best receiver in the history of the franchise, just added another highlight to the reel.
Does the result even matter at this point? Like, is it a victory just making it to the fight and having a good performance, or do you really want to win as well?
I really want to win. I really want to win. Sitting here is a victory. I get a victory every single day. Walking out to that cage is going to be a victory. Having that first punch is going to be a victory. Every little victory. But no, I'm not. I wouldn't have taken this fight if I thought I couldn't win.
I think for the Raptors, what did they learn here? They learned they're in a great spot. And then Scotty Barnes, welcome. You have achieved stardom. That's what this series was for Scotty Barnes. He became a star. The dude hit clutch bucket after clutch bucket, made big plays as a playmaker as well. He was too big or too quick, depending on the guy he was being defended by. He was incredible.
Myler gets the snap. Myler extends the play, throws on the run, finds Bruce. Bruce lowers his head, reaches for the end zone and scores. Great pass by Myler, better effort by Arlen Bruce. And this Arizona offense is grooving. They retake the lead with 9 seconds left in the half.
A historic playoff start for New York. This is just the third time in franchise history the Knicks have opened a postseason 8-2. They've been an absolute wagon. For more on the incredible run out of New York, we're joined by Knicks analyst for MSG, expert on all things NBA on ESPN, our friend Monica McNutt. Monica, all right, I'm trying to figure it out. We watched an inconsistent Knicks team all year long, and I'm like, I can't bank on this team. Then we get to the playoffs, they're no longer inconsistent. What changed?
Well, fundamentally, the offense changed. But I do think that, and we hear from guys, not just in the Knicks, but just NBA players and folks like ourselves who have covered the game, the postseason is just different. I asked Deuce McBride after the Game 4 win in Atlanta, Game 5, I should say, back at the Garden. What has happened? What has allowed you guys to raise the level of accountability one to another? And he mentioned the 2 losses by 1 point in that Atlanta series really caused this team to wake up and to lock in. If you listen to Mike Brown, he uses the verb stumbled into this offense, but it was a byproduct of trying to figure out how to put Atlanta at a deficit so that the Knicks could take advantage of it. So to me, Fitz, it boils down to, I go back to my experience for media days in October with these guys. They understood the opportunity that this season presented. They understand what it is to wear a New York Knicks jersey over the course of the season. The owner, Dolan, doubles down that they have enough. And I think they really believe that. And they have allowed that to allow them to be accountable to one another. And I think that's what's happening, but not just the players, even the coaching staff as well.
And another one of the biggest storylines in this team in the regular season was Cat and Mike Brown. Maybe some friction between the two. Cat wasn't playing nearly even close to his ceiling. Now you're seeing Cat. I mean, he's a key cog in what this Knicks team has done and wants to continue to do in the postseason. How have those two fixed things to put themselves in this position?
So again, I go back to this offensive rework, if you will, right? Like to start the season, frankly, guys, it was like Mike Brown wants to run what he ran in Sacramento. He wants Cat to be Domantas Sabonis. That's not really how he operates. And there was this friction, yeah, to your point, I'm gonna use your word, through the course of the regular season. And I just think it's two great basketball minds trying to figure out how to work together, right, in a team setting. And so honestly, I think it was sort of healthy. As I reflect on it, they had an embarrassing loss in Cleveland. Is that where they went to bed? And it prompted like these team conversations and whatever. And even Mike Brown has said it through the course of the season. You know, great teams, which he's been a part of, obviously from his Warriors days. He's like, great teams have adversity, and adversity can be very healthy. And so I think when you look at Karl-Anthony Towns and Mike Brown in particular, they had to find a way to have a meeting of the minds. Now, this iteration of this team, in terms of the offense that they're playing now, which Mike credits in terms of being collaborative, I know assistant coach Chris Jenn has had a big hand in it, suits Cat perfectly. And even Mike is like, if it's working, let's roll with it and make it better. And so I think that's where we are. I just love, again, the accountability one to another, how hard these guys are playing, how focused they've been. And yes, Cat and the offense is the thing that is written in lights, the name in the marquee right now. But also defensively, they really have continued to hold their own as well.
So with all that evolution you've mentioned, is this who you believe the Knicks are, not just for the playoffs, but sustainably moving forward as a franchise? Have the Knicks unlocked who they're going to be?
It's a great question, Fitz. I think for the calendar season 2026, yes, I can answer that question emphatically. Now, will the organization be satisfied with getting to a finals, or does this thing have to culminate in ultimately being the last team standing for them to truly believe that this group can stay together and move forward? I don't have those answers. But what I do know is when I look at what constitutes a champion in this league statistically in terms of a top 10 offense, a top 12 defense, a centerpiece all-star, maybe two all-stars, if you will, and I look at the numbers of what this team has done in the postseason, which are even more gaudy than what they were able to achieve in the regular season. By all metrics, this team is a legitimate contender and should be one of the last two teams standing and could be the last.
I think that is a very realistic possibility, but one reason why they're here is OG Anunoby. I mean, it's crazy to see his regular season averages, the way that he's leveled up his play in the postseason. And I think it's fair to say he's been the most important piece for this Knicks team in the postseason. But what is the latest that you're hearing on his health and availability?
Well, the last we heard yesterday for media availability is that he was still not doing non-contact, but obviously you guys got the tweet there. He is involved in practice, but it is still non-contact at this point. And here's my deal. I don't want to hear this rest versus rest thing. Everybody shut up. Like, that's so stupid. I don't want to hear it. I am old enough to remember in the calendar year 2025, when this team fell apart down the stretch of a postseason. And so I'm going to stop yelling now. And so the rest, to me, obviously for OG Anunoby as a centerpiece, is incredibly beneficial, the opportunity for him to become whole, right? But beyond that, we're talking about an offense that you stumbled into in your first round series. You mean to tell me you don't actually want to take advantage of time to get into the next layers of that offense if it has been gifted to you? Also, you mean to tell me that you would choose not to sweep versus watching your potential next opponent go to a 7-round series? Like, Who is complaining about this rest? Everybody hush. And I get it. I love Josh. Josh is my guy. He's the one that was like, la, 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 la. He's sort of an energizer. He wants to play with momentum. But you know who else said, I'd rather keep playing and I want to roll with momentum? Nick Nurse. And we saw how that panned out.
All right, so while we're just rolling out hot takes, here's what we know. We both know Stephen A, right? We both know what's going to happen. Here's the inevitability. Knicks make it to the NBA Finals. Let's say things go great. They get there, but then like everybody else, they lose to the great team in the West, right? All right, fine. So now I'm going to make Monica McNutt James Dolan this offseason. And I got a team that just went to the NBA Finals. Congratulations. You now own the Knicks.
Thank you.
It's a glorious life. The phone rings, and on the other end is LeBron or Giannis, either of them. And they're saying, hey, we want to come be the piece that brings you over. But now you got to break apart everything we just saw, but you're adding LeBron or Giannis. Would you do that if you were the Knicks?
Oh, it's heavy as the head that has the big fat wallet.
Yes.
I am out, personally. LeBron James, maybe there's a caveat for it, but I'm not paying you the $50 million that you have the potential to get in LA. If you want to come be a part of this operation, this is what the numbers look like according to what is available in my books. If you want to say you played in New York and we're a part of it, we can deal with that, but I'm not paying you $50 million to do so. I also will admit, and I felt like this for a while, I've been out on Giannis. I just think the nature of his game and the injury history he has at this point, guys, it's been a handful of years and he's not been available in the postseason. And there is no translation or dissension in his game that allows him to be as effective as he is without using speed, power, and athleticism. Hello, you can't do that on bad wills. Like, I just don't see the value in it. And I understand people are going to still say he's this, that, and the other defensively. But this team has found a way to work with this group. I think there's something to be said for keeping a core together. In fact, when the noise about Giannis versus Cat was loudest at the beginning of the season, I still took this same stance that this group deserves an opportunity to figure it out moving forward.
Let's go back to some hypotheticals then. Let's say the Knicks punch their ticket to the NBA Finals. They do what feels like is impossible. They take down the big bad Oklahoma City Thunder and they win their first championship at what feels like 500 years. That will be because of what?
Wow, that will be because this offense is as good as we think it is in both the closeout games so far in this round, right? And I'll be honest, I roll with this team, but when I'm sitting in Atlanta and the score was 71 to 40 or 30 or whatever crazy number it was, like it's a 41-point game, and I'm like having to literally pinch myself, is this real? And then I'm watching game 4 in Philadelphia, which also was a 30-point margin, and I'm like, where am I? This literally is MSG South. It is easy for the statistics to get inflated. Now, I was present for both of those games, and the Knicks were that good on both sides of the floor, but I totally get that their opponents, as they continue to move forward, in theory, will continue to rise to a higher level. We're talking about the defending champs. But I think if they are the last team standing, we will see that this offense and defense is as good as advertised. I also would venture to say that while I do believe that Oklahoma City is still probably the deeper team, the Knicks' depth has really emerged as an X factor. I mean, Isaiah Hardenstein, he was here. He was beloved here. He was fantastic. In fact, if he was still here under Mike's system, you would have a second backup 5 that could do the exact same thing that Karl Anthony Towns was doing as far as passing is concerned, because he's a great passing big as well. So I think if they're the last team standing, they have really gotten down to the X's and O's. They've been able to hold, obviously, not just through 3.5 quarters like we're typically accustomed to seeing them compete with Oklahoma City during the regular season, but they would have figured out a way to win 4 games. And that would mean you got major efforts from your all-stars, but up and down your bench, the accountability level continued to rise, and those guys stepped up to the occasion.
You guys can follow her on Twitter, X at McNutt Monica. Watch her on ESPN. She was on Get Up this morning. She's on all the shows and doing great work. I know I text you, but I got to tell you quick, your work with the WNBA, that desk for the W you guys have put together is absolutely spectacular. It is stellar. Be sure you're watching Monica on the W stuff too, because that desk is electric. Monica, we appreciate your time, my friend. We appreciate
Thanks, guys. Good to chat. It's been a long time coming. Enjoy the postseason run. I'll be back if my schedule allows.
Come on now.
Yes, please. Thanks, Monica.
Look, the real thing we're going to do is get Monica to get us on the parade float if they win the title. Coming up next, Darren Waller going to join the show. Superstar after superstar. Let's go.
Myler gets the snap.
Myler looks down the field. Bruce caught it! Touchdown! Owen Bruce, player of the game! Perfect throw.
Yeah, that was great
catch.
throw. Great play at a critical moment there.
Myler gets the snap. Myler looks. It's going to be a broken play. Needs to get rid of it. He does!
Oh my
it's
gosh.
caught!
Wow.
What put you over the top to like, I want to go to Indiana?
I was really close to going to a couple other schools. However, the point that really cemented me into Indiana is Coach Ignetti really focusing on development. His big selling point was, hey, I don't know, like other schools are trying to sell you on if we're going to win a national championship, if we're going to win all these games. I just know one thing I can do is develop quarterbacks.
This is insane. There were people that showed up tonight with Fernando Mendoza jerseys already, so they were a little bit nervous, but nothing to be nervous about. Remember, guys, in my lifetime as a Raiders fan, only 2 other times have they selected a quarterback in the first round. We're talking about Jamarcus Russell, who's essentially Voldemort to Raiders fans everywhere, and Todd Marinovich. But at the end of the day, it has been a long time since this fan base had a quarterback they could plant their flag with. This is why Raider Nation is so exciting.
Does Orlando win in an overtime, or does this instant classic continue? Deep drop and throw, end zone, Thomas Owens. That's an Orlando overtime winner. That is the most decorated receiver in the history of the franchise. Of course, he's the one to end it.
You see some of the footage right there from Darren Waller for his new video that is out, the song Baron Davis, released April 22nd. Darren Waller joins us now for the second time. Now he's officially a friend of the show. Man, appreciate your time. So walk me through this because, as we've talked about before, I got a bunch of records behind me. When you put out music, to me, it's like the most nerve-wracking day in the world because you work so hard on it and you just don't want everyone to think that it sucks. What's it like for you, for everything you've accomplished, when you put out a song?
Yeah, man, I relate to all those feelings. It's kind of like you've been working on this thing and you package it up about as nice as you can. And you just like, here you go. Hope you like it, like to the rest of the world. But like deep down knowing like, I love this song. Like, I'll still ride around and listen to it in the car from time to time. But yeah, just being proud of what you do and putting it out to the world and let people have their reactions. It may be for some people, it may not. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, but let me ask you this then, because I transitioned from music into sports media. And I remember when I first got into sports media, I was so worried that the world would figure out I'm a musician talking about sports. Why the hell do they want to hear it, right? Like for you going from sports to music, do you ever like, what's that sort of imposter syndrome moment like for you where you're looking around, you're like, people know me for this, but I also want to be known for that?
Yeah, I relate deeply. I feel like I've gotten people have pressed up against like, hey man, like, what are we doing? Like, shut up and run some routes kind of deal. And, you know, just within myself, thinking like, you know, I've put in so much time, you know, like I'm qualified in football. I've elevated from level to level, worked on my game so much. And with artistry, with making music, I've just been, you know, kind of winging it for the last 10 years. I feel like the universe has put people in my path that have taught me things, how to structure songs, how to do different things to help expand my craft. But it's still like, I don't feel as qualified. So that imposter syndrome can kind of creep in, but I just remind myself, hey, I'm just here having a journey.
I totally understand that feeling, but it is so refreshing to see so many athletes feel empowered to do something off the field, off the court, whether it's fashion, music in your case, podcasting, media. Like you are people with interests outside of your respective sport. So I love to see that you're part of kind of this new movement that we're seeing. But with that being said, you know, you're going into year 10 in the NFL, which is a massive accomplishment in and of itself. But with your passion for football and your passion for music, what would be, you know, a bigger accomplishment for you? Winning a Super Bowl or winning a Grammy?
Oh my gosh. That's wild. That's a tough choice. I might have to go Grammy. Because that's next level. I mean, plus it's like it'd be something that seems like it'd be like much more of a long shot for me, just being a kid that was like, oh, like I think I love music. Like, let me just try and just go on this ride, as opposed to like having these gifts. Like, whereas football, I've had these gifts and I've had this career where, you know, it's made sense to get to where I've gotten. But yeah, I think the Grammy would just be more improbable. So I'd say that one.
It's funny.
Fitz, do you have any to spare?
Yeah, look, I know how to lose, Graham. I've got 13 noms. I won one, but there are 12 losses along the way. But I'll say this, Darren, like when you talk about that, it's so funny to me. I always told people I was prouder of my sports business, more sports media career than I ever was in my music, because I built that later in my life. I did that from the ground up, and everybody told me I couldn't. Like the music thing was always what I did. So everybody, like naturally, they're like, yeah, of course, that's what you do, and you won. Like, but I gave my whole life to music. So I feel you in the exact opposite way. Like for me, the first time I got a sports Emmy nomination, again, I didn't win that, but the first time I was part of a show that was nominated, that was bigger to me than a Grammy, because that's what everybody said I'd never be able to do. That has to drive you at some point, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, you know, my whole life I've had this complicated relationship with football. You know, it's been at times amazing, at times just like frustrating and draining. But music has always been the one thing that I've found myself drifting towards without anybody telling me I need to, or without feeling like, oh, this is what I should be doing. It's like, this is just what I want to be doing with my time. I love it. It just kind of lights up like that inner child for me. So yeah, to build something musically would be, you know, bigger than anything I could have ever imagined, and probably just the most fun.
So do you want to keep playing football?
Yeah, I've been training since the day after the Super Bowl, 5 days a week, nonstop for, what we at, 12 weeks now. So I've been approaching like I'm playing. I ain't trained like this for nothing, I tell you that.
You're a free agent, which I'm sure is partly scary, but also partly empowering, that you get to choose your own destiny of where you end up next. What are some traits that you're looking for your next stop?
Traits for me, I mean, it's obviously like you'd want to go somewhere where you can try to win that ring. I mean, that'd be ideal. But at the same time, you know, I'm about to be 34, had some durability issues. It's a game of mitigating risk. They want to go young and cheap. I understand that. So I also would want to go somewhere where I'm most needed. Like, where do they see me as somebody that can be impactful as a leader, impactful in my role on the field as well? But like, yeah, where could I give the most with the time that I have left in the game? Like, sure, of course, I'd love to go to a great team that's contending and all that. But if the universe decides to send me somewhere that is where I'm most needed and can impact more guys, locker rooms, coaches, staff, I'm open for wherever that ends up being.
I always admit my bias. I got a Raiders helmet behind me. I got a Max Crosby signed jersey behind me. Max is a buddy. Twofold here. Max just put out some music. Are we going to see a Max Crosby, Darren Waller collab coming? And what's your best Max Crosby story?
I'm sure we will probably end up seeing another collab. I mean, I feel like one of the most fun memories I ever had. There's a song that me and Max have called "Gotta Go" from like 2021. I was engineering out of my house in my room that had no acoustics in it, but we made a song together and people ended up loving it. So I think it'll happen again, and I'm glad to see him having fun with it. Greatest Max Crosby story that damn near brings me to tears every time I think about it. We had a scout team tight end. This was 2021, probably too. I'm not going to share his name, but he was like, you know, new to the team. Is like, he's trying to go hard, trying to earn his spot, trying to be about the right things. But Friday, you're not in pads. So it's like, there's still speed, but it's not like as, you know, confrontational. And he's kind of going hard blocking Max on Friday. And Max was like, chill out, bro. It's Friday. Like, quit doing that. Like, and the tight end was like, bro, come on. Like, I'm here. Like, I'm working. Like, da-da-da. And Max was like, all right. And the next play, like, Max just like completely blows him up and has his neck just twisted up. And he's like, I'll break his fucking neck. I'll break his neck. And the tight end's like, do it. And everybody's just like, oh my God, like we have a game in 2 days. But Max is a lunatic, man. That's why he's so great.
That is exactly what I would expect a behind the scenes Max Crosby story to sound like. And, you know, whenever we see football news come out, it's different for us. This is our job to react to it, have a take on it. it's different when you know these people as friends. You have a human element to it. So when you saw, the Max Crosby trade to Baltimore, and then the trade didn't go through, as somebody who was a former teammate and a friend of Max Crosby's, what was your reaction to that?
Just kind of understanding like all the emotions he must have incurred in that little bit of time. So I think he had like some frustrations with the team down the end of the stretch last season, and like having the ability to have a new start is like, amazing. Like, shoot, let's go for it. Like, this may not have been where I wanted it to go initially, but shoot, we get a new start. Like, let's do it. And then to have that completely halted and like you're going back to a team that you were frustrated with and kind of had you on the trading block and all that, just to like that whole cycle, I feel like it would just be like a lot to deal with and process, and while still recovering from a surgery and an injury and trying to get back to 100%. So it's just a lot of things that you got to feel and sit with that are probably uncomfortable. So that's what I think about when I think about a guy that I spend a lot of time around and know on a deeper level.
Yeah, I can't imagine any of that, and just trying to normalize it in life. I also can't imagine. I've heard some stories, some portions of the story of you being in Mike McDaniel's office as everything went awry for the Dolphins. Tell me what happened here that you were a witness to.
Yeah. So the week after the season ends, like people that don't make the playoffs, you have exit meetings with your coaches, with the head coach, and then you'll go up and see like your position coach, coordinator, all that. And they were like, Mike's assistant was like, set up a 30-minute block with Mike before you get out of town. And everybody had booked up all the slots Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then Thursday, I just saw Thursday was open. So I just said, I'll do Thursday at 9:30 because I had a massage at like 10:30, like just after 10. So I was like, I can just go straight from there to my massage. And I get up there at 9:30 and they're talking to Mike. Everything's cool. Like we're talking about the season, like how much of a roller coaster it was for me, but how excited he was to be able to like have a relationship with each other and coach me and put me in positions to be successful. And I'm talking about next year and changes he was going to make and stuff like that. And so then the meeting's at 9:30. It's about like 9:42, and Stephen Ross just like kicks the door in, like not even like knocks, like, hey, like what's going on? Just like flings the door open. And then he joins the conversation for a couple of minutes and is like, yeah, it's great to have you here. Like, you don't even need to go anywhere in free agency. Like, this would be great. We want you here. And then the conversation kind of hit like a lull, and he's just like looking at me like, and I'm like, oh, that's that get the fuck out of here look. And I looked at Mike, and Mike was like, yeah, we can finish this later, because they were looking for a new GM. They were trying to do a whole bunch of stuff in like a quick period of time. So I thought it was probably about that. And I leave the room, go downstairs and get my massage, wake up an hour later, my phone says Mike McDaniel has been fired. So I'm just like, yeah, it just keeps getting more cutthroat as time goes along.
Oh, this business. Ooh.
It's absolutely. It's insane. Go ahead.
Stick on your time in Miami. One of your former Dolphins teammates, Devon Achane, got paid yesterday. 4 years, $68 million, $32 million that guaranteed. Are we breaking this news to you?
I live under a rock, so I'm not really getting much of this information. I'm super excited for that dude, man. He's a fucking alien. He's so talented. He's so talented, man. Like, he was doing everything last year, and just like a calm, like poised, nothing's really getting to him. But yeah, just like off the freakish alien talent that man has, he deserves every penny. I know his agent as well. Shout out to Leah. Really cool for him. He deserves, every penny, probably even more.
Well, man, we appreciate you coming on with us. We appreciate you talking to us. Love that you keep putting the music out. And look, when you figure out where you're playing next, you got to come out, hang out with us again. But we're always here for more Darren Waller time. We appreciate you, man. Enjoy the get a little rest. Just a little rest. But we can't wait to see you on the field kicking butt next season and putting out more music. Thanks for hanging out.
No doubt. Thanks for having me back. See y'all again soon.
Great stuff from Darren Waller. Legend on and off the field. Let's go. Coming up, controversy in Portland. We'll tell you about it.
There There were rumors that this was going to happen before the draft, that Darren Price was going to end up going to the Seahawks at 32. I think you could make a very strong argument that you could take Price as early as the 106. That might end up getting you in trouble, but I don't know if I feel that strongly about some of the other players in that range.
There was not many other depth charts like across the league where there's just a smooth sailing spot to that running back one position.
For what it's worth, this will be third down at 25, just as it was in the first half. Neal, deep ball, got Williams, touchdown! 37 yards, Neal to Williams. The Wheelers back within 4.
That's the speed of Keon Williams. And Neal hooking up with him, looked his way the entire time. And when you give Keon Williams man coverage, he could beat anyone.
The truth here is this is a very far delineation from where the top of the quarterback game is right now, physically. Correct. You know, when you look at, like, you call the top 12 quarterbacks, everyone's got some sort of extreme physical trump card.
This ain't Taylor Green.
Part of the problem to me with this pick is you saw exactly where the physical limitations hurt Ty Simpson last year at Alabama.
Simpson is a pretty good athlete, but I'm not going to run design runs with him because he'll get crushed.
Sunday Night Football on Yahoo Sports Network. And Cook the squib kick. Tomas across the 10, cuts it at the 15, at the 20. One guy to beat, inside the 10, cuts it back 5. He's in! He's in! Touchdown, Nighthawks!
New Blazers owner Tom Dundon is reportedly, quote, ruthless and will not hesitate to move the franchise to Nashville, Austin, Kalamazoo if Portland politicians continue to treat the relocation threat as a, quote, hollow bluff. That per Oregon Live columnist Bill Oram giving us some of at least the mindset. I think we can all acknowledge they're not actually going to be moving the Trailblazers to Kalamazoo. The point here is that when we always talk about relocations of franchises, Caroline, the question is where they're going to go. And I think what we're really hearing here is that Tom Dundon will leave no stone unturned if he doesn't believe that Portland's going to cooperate to give him what he wants for his Trailblazers.
Kalamazoo. Was Paducah, Kentucky booked?
Probably very busy.
Yeah, very busy. Wonderful city, by the way. Best Jimmy John's I've ever had in my life was in Paducah, Kentucky, so no shade to them. This does feel serious. Like, we know that Tom Dundon is a cheapo and will prioritize saving money more than loyalty to the city of Portland. He's also a new owner. He bought the team, 2 months ago? So we know that Tom Dundon won't feel loyal to Portland if it means that he has to cut the check for a new arena and new facilities. You bring up a fair question. If not Portland, then where? We hear Austin and Nashville, where I live too, Charlotte, thrown out there a lot when it comes to expansion teams or when it comes to relocation. But I don't think Austin or Nashville, as great of cities as they are, growing cities as they are, that makes no sense at all. Austin's what, a couple of hours from San Antonio? No, Texas doesn't need a third NBA team. And then Nashville is 3 hours from Memphis. Tennessee does not need 2 NBA teams. So neither of those cities make sense at all to me. But if you look at the NBA map, cities that would make sense and cities that would also fill kind of a void that exists where there aren't a lot of close NBA teams, the Kansas City or St. Louis areas make a lot of sense to me. I will admit my bias. I am from St. Louis. I would love an NBA team in St. Louis, but Missouri doesn't have a team. And if you say St. Louis is 4 hours from Memphis, 4 hours from Chicago, I think Kansas City makes a lot of sense. A great sports city. It's in an NBA void. There's not really any team close to it. It's clean. It's growing. It's I think those two cities would make a lot of sense, and an NBA team would very much so be supported. I also look at Vancouver. We already have a Canadian market. The Supersonics, by all intents and purposes, will be coming back. So if you're moving Portland, at least you're kind of staying in the same geographical footprint. And then Vancouver and Seattle is a very obvious geographical rivalry there. So those three would make the most sense to me, either Kansas City or St. Louis or Vancouver. Expand the Canadian market a little bit there.
Look, I love the idea of a team in Nashville. I think it should be noted that Nashville and Memphis both wanted NBA teams. A lot of people don't realize Bridgestone Arena was built in Nashville with the concept of trying to lure the NBA. The NBA chose Memphis over Nashville. Now we all see Nashville in the 90s, much different place, early 2000s than it is now. I think we can all acquiesce to that. But the NBA had a chance and they missed that chance. They try and make it right now. Can they make everybody play together nicely in that state? I don't know. The other side of this, though, is that relocation is just an inevitable conversation whenever there's one. It only takes one city. This is why constantly I hear the debate. And as a Raiders fan, I've been around this debate for many years because I grew up an LA Raiders fan that became an Oakland Raiders fan that's now a Vegas Raiders fan. And you always hear people say relocation is just absolutely the devil. And I understand it. You also hear people say that cities shouldn't be paying for arenas and stadiums. And I understand that. It takes one. So if you have just bought the Portland Trailblazers, you have an established brand that doesn't really have any negative equity with it for most people. You have something of value. You turn around and say, okay, now what I want is the most for my brand. So if we're going to have a conversation about, well, what should cities be willing to provide for sports in general? I think part of what you have to at least acknowledge in that conversation is that this isn't about right or wrong. This is about reality. And the reality of it is if I owned a team and I looked around and thought, well, Nashville's a vibrant market and maybe there's an arena, maybe there's an incentive package, maybe there's a tax package, maybe they'll build me a new multi-billion-dollar facility I can make a ton of money off of. Maybe they'll give me a plot of land that I can build around and create an entertainment and arts district like so many owners are doing right now. Realistically, if there is one city in the country that is willing to do that, that's all you need. And as much as we joked about Kalamazoo. Like, I'm not saying it's going to turn around and be Holland, Michigan, where you're competing with the Tulip Festival, but I am saying that at some point it takes one city willing to spend billions of dollars to have that city seen differently. And if they're willing to do it, then teams are going to move there. And even if the team doesn't really want to move there, they're always going to use it as leverage. Nashville, Austin, Vancouver, all of these places are leverage for why relocation is never going to stop being a conversation in sports, Caroline, because as long as somebody is willing to pay for it out there, if Portland doesn't want to give this new ownership group everything they want in the process, they'll find somebody that does.
You bring up the Raiders. I am also a sports fan, victim of relocation as somebody born and raised in St. Louis. And I think what I learned there is owners don't care about your loyalty or your passion for the team. Stan Kroenke, the owner of the Rams, lived in Columbia, Missouri. He's from Columbia, Missouri, the middle of nowhere in Missouri. He had ties to Missouri. He lived in Clayton in St. Louis. He had, I mean, like he was somebody that felt the passion and the loyalty of sports teams in St. Louis just as much as anybody else. But above a St. Louisan, above a Missourian, above somebody who was loyal to the people of that city, he was a businessman. The team was worth far more in Los Angeles than it was worth in St. Louis. St. Louis wasn't willing to build a new arena that needed upgrades. I mean, like, terribly, still does, but it's neither here nor there. Los Angeles was. The league was willing to build a multi-billion-dollar stadium in Los Angeles. And, you know, the Portland arena needs updating. It's been there since, 1995? It's going to take about $400 million worth of renovations. So if, the owner, Tom Dundon of the Portland Trailblazers, wants that to all be public funding and the public isn't willing to sign up for that, it'll take the team where it's worth more, where he doesn't have to sign that check, where he can make more money, where it's not money out of his pocket. Unfortunately, this is all a business decision, and by somebody whose nickname is El Cheapo, I think we have to keep that in mind as well.
I will never fault a city for saying, you know what, we're not going to give a dime of our money to stadiums. I'll never fault that. And even if your answer is, well, it's tourism money, well, that's fine. Tourism money could still go towards roads and schools. So I will never fault a city for deciding they don't want to invest in a billionaire and give free money to a billionaire. But most billionaires don't become billionaires because they're willy-nilly with their cash along the way. I also won't fault somebody that owns a business, which at the end of the day is what sports are to all of these owners. If you own a business and you have better tax incentives, you have more free money coming at you somewhere else. Just like a company can move their headquarters, so can a brand, even if it hurts our heart in the process. We'll be back right here tomorrow for a Friday edition of Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching. Come back tomorrow.